What's cracking there, buddy? Welcome back to the channel. New video. This video was requested a couple times, and it has to do about the elderly in prison, right? Out here in California, what happens to the elderly in prison? And I'm gonna be honest. Normally, this is prior to them letting everybody out of the shoe. Okay. Remember, when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about prior to them letting everybody out of the shoe. I've been out 9 years. So I can't speak to what happens now that everybody's out. So when I was in prison, if you saw an older dude, it was mainly going to be a white guy or a black guy. For the Northerners, from what I saw and from conversations that I had with Northerners while in the shoe, Northerners would last about 3 years or so on the main line and then get validated. I did a story the other day about validation in California state prisons. The problem with the Northerners was, or the problem not with the Northerners, problem for the Northerners was, or is, or was, whatever, is it's mandatory that they carry what they call our bundles, right? Everybody knows that, including the cops. So if the cops feel like it, and I've talked about how the CDC, they play dirty games. If the CDC gets a little hair up their ass, like, you know what, they want this guy off the yard, they'll send ISU, rush his pad, and put him on potty watch. Potty watch is when they chain you up, put you in a cell, a room, whatever, and you're not getting out of there until you have defecated 3 separate times for them. With the Northerners always having bundles on them, some, they get a lazy cop that'll fall asleep. They'll be able to take out whatever they have, get rid of it. Others, they have RoboCop. They have a crime fighter watching them. They ain't going to sleep, so they get caught with a bundle. So in my experience, I saw a lot of times the Northerners got validated within like 3 years. Boom. They're stuck in the shoe, right? Southerners, I remember probably about 5 older dudes, like 50 and up. For the Southerners, what I saw was usually at your 10-year mark, especially if you had gone in and out of Pelican Bay Shoe within those first 10 years, usually around your 10-year mark, they're snatching you up. Because, again, the CDC feels like somehow, some way you're connected. You've been around. You've been in the shoe. You're probably a part of the leadership or assisting leadership on the yard. You're looked at as a problem. They can plant evidence on you. Believe me, I've seen stuff planted on dudes. They get some validated, and that same exact packet, they will plant on another dude. What they'll do is they'll snatch them up, make up an excuse, put them in AdSeg, put the stuff in their property, come back, legitimately sign in to search that convict's property, say they found all this stuff hidden in this or that, and then they're validated. These are the dirty games that they played, right? The older guys on the yard, I can say the few that I was around, they were treated with respect. Because all these dudes had been in San Quentin and Old Folsom in the 70s and 80s. A few had caught bodies. They were respected by the legends. They had a lot of knowledge and wisdom. So you respected them. If you were smart enough, you'd soak up a little bit of game from them because they were from a different era. That was something I did even when I went to the California Youth Authority. I didn't want to hang around the guys that just came to YA like me. I wanted to kick it with the homies that had 3, 4, 5 years in already. Get some game, get some knowledge. When I got to the joint, the same thing. I kicked it with dudes that were around my age, but I soaked up the game from the older dudes. Dudes that I knew had already done pegadas, been in the shoe, been around the people that you needed to learn from. I remember an incident where I did see, and it was between two different ethnicities. It was during a time where the blacks were hitting the whites. It was all over a dope deal. And the blacks hit a couple whites, and the whites retaliated, and they hit an elderly black guy. That was the only time I ever saw like an elderly person get targeted. I know Vacaville, from what I've heard, that's the medical facility for the CDC. I would think a lot of the elderly that aren't tipped up, they're not gang members, nothing like that, I would think they sent them there. I wouldn't know for sure. But I can honestly say, I don't remember ever seeing an elderly Asian on the yard, like over 50. Maybe one northerner over 50 on the yard. And I think he saw, and that was actually during the time, that was on beef facility, where the northerners were saying that beef facility was no longer a spot for northerners to go to. And I remember an older dude, he was probably in his 50s, one northerner. Like I said, maybe 5 southerners. And here's another thing, check this out. Just about every one of those southerners, let me air quote that, southerners that I met that were 50 and over, if you talk to them, they would straight out say they were not sureños at all. The reason being, they were in prison before there was such a thing. A lot of people forget that term came from the California Youth Authority. That term entered the CDC probably around 1980, 1979, 1980. So all of the older southerners or older vatos that ran with the South that had gone to prison before that time, they used to say, I'm not a sureño. I'm not a Southsider. We sell up together because we're under the same thing. But what would I look like claiming something that came after I was already incarcerated? I remember one time actually, his name was Tone. I'm gonna shout him out. What's up, Big Tone? If he's still around. Dude was swole, right? We were in Wasco together. He was from Fresno. We had left Wasco together, and we went to New Folsom. And I remember they were going, and they were, when we came off the bus, they had everybody lined up right there, and they were asking, hey, who do you run with, right? And they asked Big Tone, who do you run with? He said, I don't run with nobody. And they said, where are you from? And he said, I'm from Fresno. And I remember clearly, I never forget that. I remember clearly the CO, it was a female. I think it was Dominici was her name. And she said, oh, so you're a bulldog. And he said, I ain't a bulldog. And she said, but you're from Fresno. Do you sell up with guys from Fresno? He goes, yeah, I do. And she goes, then you're a bulldog. He said, I'm not a bulldog. I came to the joint before there were bulldogs. And I remember talking to him about that after. And he was like, yeah, I don't let these juras label me. Charlie. Like, they could sell me up with whoever they sell me up with. And if it's the wrong person, then it's got to be what it's got to be. And that was the schooling I got from older Southerners. When the juras ask, who do you sell with? You say Mexicanos, Mexicans. They put the wrong guy in the cell with you, then it's going to be what it's going to be. They know what the hell they're doing. They just want you to identify yourself. That's why you don't do that. But hopefully this video helped you a little bit. there rarely were older dudes. Now they let everybody out. So now of course there's older guys. There's nowhere to put older guys. I can tell you that the older guys that I was around from down south, they did the same workout as everyone else. One of them, I remember he was my celly. I mentioned him a lot. When we were in the oil together, we were in the hole together in Tehachapi. He would do the whole rutina with all of the younger dudes, because everybody was younger compared to him. And I remember, this was 1997. He was, I believe, 51 years old or something along them lines, right? And he would do the whole rutina with everybody. And when it was over, he didn't play handball. He went to the corner and kept busting down till yard recall. And I specifically remember there was a guy that was in the hole with us, and none of us liked him. Nobody on the yard liked him. He was very arrogant. And he was actually, and I'd say, with us, not for whacking anybody, but for bombing on a guy that was in handcuffs. We actually saw the incident. It was right when we got there, two homies jumped up and jumped on a dude because at the time, Tehachapi was still that 50-50 yard. It was barely switching over. And so we were the very first bus, so we all got off. These dudes weren't on the same bus with us. It was our first or second day in the chow home. We're still in orientation. We haven't been cleared yet. And these two dudes, they jumped up and jumped on a dude when the thing was all over and he was being escorted out. The other dude that nobody in AdSeg liked, he jumped up and he bombed on the dude when he was in handcuffs. And I remember when he did that, those of us that were at my table, we all looked at each other like, what the hell was that? So meanwhile, we're all in AdSeg. We're in the hole. And that same dude, the Mr. Punch him in the cuffs guy, he said, it was a discussion. Somebody had just came that we were going to have to smash. And we were discussing who was going to get the vato when he comes out to yard, right? Who's going to get this guy? And Mr. Punch him while he's cuffed says, he told the two guys who he piggybacked off of their thing in the chow hall, he told them, you vatos should do it. You guys are young. He said, I've already done my shit. And that's when my celly, the 51-year-old, who was right by where we were sitting, he was working out still, but he was in the conversation, he was listening. And right when Mr. Punch him on his cuff said that, my celly looked at him and he said, hey, Holmes, I'm 51 years old and I'm not done doing my shit. What do you mean you done yours already? And it was one of those moments where you're just, you look, but inside you're laughing hysterically. You just can't show it. Anyways, man, I would just say for anybody wondering, don't underestimate an old man, and not behind them walls, especially if they got 10, 20, 30 years in. They know how to make a knife better than you, and they know where to use it, where to hit. That's my video for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Everybody, please be safe, be smart, and tell the ones you love that you love them, man. I'm out of here.